Welcome back to Sarah Dardasha, and today we're going to speak about some wording in the BBC. I'm sure you probably have heard a couple of times the language used in describing things happening in Palestine. Let's watch this clip together.
Davis in Tel Aviv. Well, with us now is Husam Zomlot, who is the head of the Palestinian Mission to the United Kingdom. Thank you very much for joining us here in the studio. How is it that today has been more orderly than the chaotic scenes that we saw on Thursday when we saw the last exchange and release?
The scenes is not what matters. What matters is that
Well, it does.
exchange.
Sorry, Mr. Zomlot, you know that it matters, and you believe that something has.
Can I just mention here? She's very rude. I'm sorry to say. Lady, if you are watching me, I don't like her approach. You've asked a question, he's saying his opinion, listen to it, let him finish, and then come back and say what you want to say. If you know the manners of speaking and interviewing an ambassador, and anybody wants to speak to you, not nice.
Changed in the last few days.
The important thing is that these captives are being released. There is an exchange, and we in the Palestinian side see hundreds of Palestinian captives. Most of them have been behind bars for decades, some of them almost 40 years. I mean, this is the longest serving captives, political prisoners, between parentheses, on earth in history. And therefore, of course, it's a sense of relief that such a process is taking place and people are seeing their freedom finally after all these years and decades. But the real scenes that shocked me and the world is the state of affair, is the state of health of the Palestinian captives.
To state that, and other people who've commented and said they've dismissed what's happened to the Israeli hostages.
So she says here hostages, and she speaks about the Palestinians and say prisoners. He clearly saying to her, Mr. Husam Zomlot, they are captives, and captives, hostages, obviously has a different meaning than prisoners, as hostages and captives means asir, harb, and prisoners, masjoon. There would have been something that they've done to be called prisoners. So the use of language, well done, Mr. Hasmulot, to be aware and to say it out loud, while it's something else written here on the BBC.
They've come out and they look healthy and they're perfectly fine.
Yes.
Those two things can coexist, can they not?
Can you compare between the state of health of the Israeli captives? And please, Martin, we need to agree on the terminology here. You call the Israeli side hostages and you call our side, the Palestinians, prisoners. And this is even against the international...
Some of them were kept in jails as opposed to prisons, weren't they? When there is an important distinction.
Please invite an international law expert next time and ask him. In such a situation, when combatants, active combatants, are taking, what are they described? They will tell you they will be described as captives, or at best, prisoners of war. And the Palestinian people, when they are described as prisoners, it gives the impression that those are criminals who have been convicted in a...
Well done. Well done. Well spoken. This is who you need to speak on behalf of your country. Someone that understands terminology, someone that can stand there and tells you you are wrong and the wording are wrong, and the way you referring to our people, calling them prisoners as if they've done something, it's wrong. Much respect, Mr. Hazamlot.
Court, which is not the case. Let me give you one example.
Talk to us about the proportions then, because some have not been convicted of anything, have they?
Most of them, actually. I'll tell you the proportions. Israel, since its military occupation of the occupied territory, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza, has detained 800,000 Palestinians. 800,000. That is more than 20% of the entire population and almost half of the male population. The policy is primarily to crush the Palestinian spirit. It has nothing to do with security.
So there you go. He explains to her, why are they being detained in big, crazy mass numbers? Just because they want to crush their spirits. So it has nothing to do with what they've done or any crimes or anything like that. They're just trying to really take the men and put them all in jail in big numbers to crush their feelings and spirits in life. Sorry about that.
And if you look at the half-male population, you will see that most of them have been detained under the so-called administrative detention in martial courts, where the rate of conviction is 99%, and all the way to what the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem described only recently as welcome to hell, where these Israeli camps have turned into torture camps and murder and sexual abuse. This is very well documented. And that's why, in May, this is an opportunity for the international media, including the BBC, to shed the light on the criminality Israel is inflicting on our people for all these decades.
But when a state, and it's Israel in this case, feels under threat from some people who don't even believe that that nation has a right to defend itself, isn't it understandable?
Very, very, very rude woman again. He's trying to explain to her and tells her that these detainees, these hostages, have been through a lot of sexual abuse. You call it, you name it, all of them. And he's trying to tell her this is the time to really talk about it in news like that. But she's saying, but these people don't believe that the Israelis have the right to defend themselves. This nonsense has given the authority to Israelis to kill the Palestinians. Yeah? And she's still using the same message. And people like her, these are the people that have encouraged the suicide, this crime rates to raise, and this genocide to happen. I said suicide, I meant genocide to happen in Palestine.
That they round people up when they feel threatened by those people?
You know how many people they have
Is that
rounded?
it? It's a question.
You know, this whole issue of right of self-defense has allowed Israel to inflict
There
the
you go.
mass murder and mass destruction, what the ICJ now describe as plausible genocide.
Can I just say,
this is not an act of
you know what
self-defense.
I'm going to
Yeah.
have to say? I'm going to say Israel denies that. They say that they were in pursuit of Hamas terrorists who hid behind their own people.
And that's how you do it? That's how Britain did it when there were issues in Northern Ireland? You went and bombed Belfast? You killed 60,000 people, innocent people? What is this logic? Israel has been behaving in a thuggish manner above international legality, and the international media has been giving it all the cover to actually quit the responsibility. I mean, look at the terminology. Look how we describe things. Of course, there are issues, but you go and arrest children. You know, as we
Language. Language is very important. That's why I want to talk today about it. The terminology, the wording used can justify so many actions. It's very, very important to be well aware of terminology. Terminology, the words that are used in describing what's happening, in describing a war, in describing something huge like this that have happened. So yes, language is very important. For someone like Mr. Husam, he is honestly, in my eye, a well-respected man that understands terminology and knows how to explain it really well to the media. He's been pointed into on the spot from the beginning. They're really waiting for him to say one single word or a statement, so they can, just to really try to stop him there. But he's been really knowing the numbers, the history, the words that's been used, the terminology that's been used against the Palestinians. Much respect to Mr. Hazamlot and BBC. You really need to learn from all these mistakes, all these words that you've been used, even with your guests that you have had. They've been trying to point out to you to call it what it is and don't justify murder and genocide. Thank you. And yes, terminology matters.